Welcome back to the Apprentice 1-to-1 podcast sponsored by Schneider Electric. This week I have Tom Bickerton with me, who has some incredible donations to give away to apprentices. Listen out for the competitions, get involved in the comments and join in the chat. Welcome back to the Apprentice 1-to-1 podcast. This is me, Mark, and I am here today with a good friend from social media, generally over on Twitter. It is Tom Bickerton. How are you this morning, Tom?
Hi Mark, how are you?
I'm really good, thanks. I'm stuck in the office doing some paperwork this morning, so for my sins, I've got all the certificates to sign off, and you'll know all about that when you get the admin side of the job. So I'm stuck doing that. What about you?
I'm currently isolating with COVID at the moment, but doing exactly the same as yourself, having an office a couple of days, so it's good to catch up.
Yeah, an enforced office break for you. It's never good getting the old COVID, but hopefully it's treating you kindly, and you're not going to be run down for too long.
Fingers crossed. I've done the Beechams and every other flu and thingy treatment, so hopefully it should clear up soon.
So this isn't Tom's first time on a podcast. He's been on a couple of the other shows from the other podcast creators out there. So there's episode 54 over with the guys on E5. So you can go and check that out to see Tom's background. It is on there already. And equally with Gary on Hit the Lights, I think that one's episode 8. We are going to have a little chat with Tom about his background ourselves, but we're going to focus on some other things to do with the wider issues in the apprenticeship industry. So just to give people an outline to yourself, Tom, where did you start in the industry? Where did you walk through the doors?
So I started off as an Ministry of Defence apprentice down in Portsmouth, where I live. I was very lucky to get into it. I failed the first year, a trades test to get in. Did it again, second time, just scraped the mark to get in. Had a fantastic apprenticeship, learnt some fantastic values and attributes from, getting up early in the morning. That's one of the key things, being punctual, timekeeping, all the way through to interacting with adults. Because when you come from 16, 17, you've been up here when you just left school. When you start your apprenticeship, you're down here. You now have to converse and speak to an adult. So I learned the right and wrong ways, which we all do through our journey. Worked on some fantastic projects. I could spend all day talking about which one individually, but it was a really good apprenticeship. I got one day a week day release to the local technical college where I'm based. Fantastic place, good lecturers all from different backgrounds and industries, and so it was very good to build up on that knowledge. And then I sort of left after being made redundant after qualifying and went out into the electrical world and threw myself at a variety of different jobs, from doing domestic through to commercial. I've done ATEX work as well, marine side as well. So yeah, I've had a really good career. I've thoroughly enjoyed my electrical career thus far at the moment. It's not over. I still want to learn more, as we all do. But I've really enjoyed it. I've been very lucky, and I've had some very good opportunities, and I've always taken them, regardless of what my sort of decision is at the time when I'm sort of worrying about it. I've just gone for it, and it's kind of been really lucky. Some have paid off well, some haven't. It's just life. But I think with my apprenticeship, and I would always say this to anyone, look at industry as an apprenticeship. Don't just settle on doing not just a commercial or domestic, or firms that do cover all disciplines. Look at industry. So my industry was building ships. I maintained the base that looked after building the ships, so it was a good thing. I've done that. I run my own business now for about 6 years. I sort of do just domestic and commercial, mainly maintenance and install and test and inspect. We're just starting to broach into the renewable sector. When I say broach, we're taking baby steps. We've started with the electric vehicle chargers, and now we're booked on to do a solar PV, and battery course. But what we're going to do is I'm going to learn how to do it on my house first. So if I make any mistakes, I can fix them at mine before sort of unleashing myself into the big wide world of renewables. But yeah, it's great. I've really enjoyed it thus far, and as they say, the only way is up.
Yeah, there is definitely, if you're going to be on roofs doing solar. I think that's a lot of electrical contractors are on that journey at the minute. What you're doing is very similar to what I'm doing. We're practicing our own house. I've got Stuart Cater who I can call on for some expertise when I'm stuck on certain roofing systems. So it is that learning journey for us. But going back to your apprenticeship, you made a good point in there, and Jamie, when he was on the podcast, used to say that a lot. There's job roles out in industry that many people wouldn't even think of, places to go and look. And like you said, a naval base maybe isn't somewhere you'd first think of to get an electrical apprenticeship, and you've gone off and done it. There's all those instrumentation things as well. You know, electricians are needed everywhere, aren't they? And the fact you've gone off and had that experience in a naval yard must have been quite a unique one for you. So I guess you saw some interesting things back in those days.
Yeah, definitely did. You know, seen some fantastic projects from you know, the new, well, they're not new now, but they were when I was in there. They were the new Type 45s. So we saw those coming from, you know, a shell, which is effectively what they were, to being completely fitted out. Then we sort of saw the transition of the building of the power supplies for the new carrier classes coming in. So we had each ship obviously works on a different frequency, so we had to have extra frequency converters, which were built in individually per aircraft carrier. We've also had to have two new 33 kVA supplies brought in for these ships. This
wow.
It's big stuff. So yeah, it was really interesting to see not just the what I call your fundamental skills, like your lighting, your power, your containment, you know, your switching, your motors and everything else. There was those are your sort of key bits, but there was the other bits and pieces to do, like the science and technology. I didn't know anything about frequency converters. I had no idea about them. Some of the ones that we had in there originate from the 1960s, and they've just been repurposed. We just kept going. There's, say, you know, you've got your Ernies and your Berts who've been in there, man and boy, and they've taught that apprenticeship sort of thing, and it's gone through that great aspect of learning from, you know, gentlemen who've been in the industry, who've learnt that thing. When I started in there, it was very male dominated, and it was very there wasn't very many female electricians in there. And then we had a restart training person who was one of the very first time I'd ever heard of the sort of like intense electrical course. A lady came in, I say young lady, she'd take me for saying young lady, but a lady came in, and she came in to just do predominantly testing, and that was the first sort of introduction that I got to this intense course. And she was very lucky that there was a lot of people around her, that, and including myself, that we just all worked as a team. There was none of this, oh, I'm not telling you what I know, because if that happened, if that was the case, you just weren't part of the team and you got moved on. Which I'd always encourage people: don't hoard the knowledge, share it. You know, because the more you share with people, the easier life will be. You know, I've always done
definitely.
That myself. But yeah, no, it was really good. We did a fantastic, you know, lots of really intricate stuff. There's some things that I can't talk too much about because it's the official Secrets Act and stuff like that. But it's not too secret, squirrel. But there are things in there that I
know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I've had a background on RAF bases, different sector to you, and there is limitations on what we can say about stuff, even though we're not involved with what's going on, you know, on the base. Yeah. We see a lot of it, don't we? So got to be a bit careful. But one of the things we've been speaking about offline of late this last week, Tom, and we'll get to some of the very, very kind things you've been doing on DMs over the last week towards Apprentice 1-to-1 in a minute. But he's speaking about the financial aspects of being an apprentice, and that kind of resonated with me, because one of the key complaints I get in Apprentice 1-to-1 from people who are lucky enough to have employment as apprentices is managing with those low wages. And we was just speaking about, I think I started off on 45 quid or whatever it was a week, and lots of that was put back into the family budget. So it's not something new, this low wage starting out as an apprentice. I think there has to be some acceptance, in my opinion, that's just a course of what happens. So how did you find dealing with all of that?
It was very hard. I remember coming from a single parent family household as well, and this isn't a violent sort of thing. It's just life. We've all got a story, and this is my story. It was hard. I remember, looking at my hand, and I'd had, was it £1.80 left to last me till Friday when I used to get paid, and I had to get to work or eat. So it was kind of like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk to work, and I'll make this last as best I can. Don't get me wrong, I used to get butties and sandwiches, but we used to, turn up. All your mates would be off to the canteen. I'd be sat there going, yeah, I'll be with you. But anyway. But it was hard. And I remember I got given a few basic hand tools, which you or not I would say electrical, and more engineering hand tools, because when I started, you make a toolbox, then you make a square, and then you make a few bits and pieces, which is more of an engineering side, but they're not really what I was employed to do, which was electrical. I just remember it being going into the wholesalers, and it was like looking up at the counter, maybe the tools that you wanted. It was just like they're there, but they're so far away. I can't grasp it because of the money. Anyway, long sort of it. As time went on, we built up a fantastic toolkit. I was very lucky. My missus, who I'm still with to this day, she helped me out very vastly. She was only a hairdressing apprentice back then, but she earned better than me, which was amazing. She'd deal with tips and everything else, and we worked as a team. It was good. When I had a bit of money spare, I'd help her get, vice versa. But one of the things I've always kind of looked at is when you see apprentices coming in here, they're always paid very low. And everything else, and I know from employers' point of view, it's a bit of a risk that you don't want to go out and buy a Rolls Royce toolkit. You want to kind of start them on a sort of a very fundamental what they're going to need to do. And I remember, we used to have a book that used to come into us from, I think it was Cromwell Tools. I think it was. And we used to go through it. And they started doing this thing like a lot of mechanics get this. It's like you pay weekly for your tools. This is as you go up a couple of years in the thing. And I remember it was just like I get this catalogue out for a month, and I put my name down to it, and come end of the month or week, I'd pay off what I had, and that was really fortunate. And it's sort of got me resonating, thinking, I'm doing all right now as an electrician, as a businessman as well. How can I help? I can't go up to someone and go, here you go, here's a load of money. I just can't. But as a business, we can offset bits and pieces towards help youngsters coming into it. I've had a couple of apprentices in the past, and I've always kind of said to them, I'll get you your key fundamentals, but after that, I was very strict on it. After that, you've got to build it up yourself. I can either help, or you can do it yourself. But whatever it is, I'll give you the basics. You must build on top of that. If you don't build on top of that, you can't do the job. Then that's kind of where we're going to have a bit of an issue. Anyway, it went on, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was that pep talk, but they'd come in the next day. Tom, have you seen this tool? They'd bring out this, fantastic bit of kit, and I'd be like, wow, they've got better stuff than me. This is where are they getting all this stuff from? But it's not what I've kind of started to do now is anytime I'm looking at purchasing a new item, I buy two now. And what I've been speaking to Mark about is I've got a couple of items of tools that I've built up. I say couple, quite a bit, that I'm going to donate to Mark and to give away to any apprentices who are struggling financially, who are struggling with buying the bits and pieces, because I think it's nice to be nice and give back. in that respect, because I've been there myself. You know, it's what I made. I had to put into the household as well as, you know, living and everything else. And I think I've always said, if I'm ever in a position where I can afford to do it, which I can, I'd like to give back. So it's not, I'm not going to be giving you a van full of tools, but I'm going to give you some tools to give to an apprentice. I've got one or two of them you can have a quick look at now to give you an idea. So I have a 1000 volt Boddingtons insulated hacksaw.
Very nice hacksaw, is that one?
Never been used yet. It's a good bit of kit. I haven't got both of these, but I've got 2 sets of Irazola.
Sweet. They are some super duper drivers, those ones. Love them.
A full set of these. I have another set of insulated screwdrivers. I can't remember what the manufacturer's called. I've got some fake and uninsulated engineering screwdrivers. And I've got another thing that I'm going to give to Mark, but I'll let him do it as a giveaway on his Instagram page, but it will be revealed at a later date. So
it's very, very kind of you to do this, Tom. And you know, I keep saying this, going right back to the start of Apprentice 1-to-1. It was actually Eddie Clemens who first came forward, and Eddie's a top guy as well with his MFT that he donated into Apprentice 1-to-1, and it's kind of gone from that. It's just people like you who want to give back a little bit and try and support apprentices because of their own experiences they've had. We all know what it's like struggling on those low wages. It isn't something new. We've all been there, and I guess it's kind of the buy-in through the course of your training that you have to accept that lower salary. But while there's good people out there who are willing to help and offer a few bits and pieces to fill a toolbox or two up, I think that's incredible. And you're underplaying what you're doing there, to be honest, Tom. It's really kind, and there's going to be some very, 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 very happy recipients of this gear. And the set that you've just put forward there in terms of getting that out, I'm going to ask a question on social media, and it's going to lead back to this podcast that the apprentices need to answer and then tag us on a post. So if you want to be in with an opportunity of getting your hands on those hand tools that Tom's just shown us there, you need to go and create a post on Twitter or Instagram or wherever you like, social media platform of your choice, tag me and Tom in it, and answer this question. What does ZS mean? So what's the definition of ZS? And then myself and Tom will choose some winners from those people who've gone to the trouble of doing that first. Hopefully some of you actually take part, and we'll get that stuff to you directly as a result of that. So that's the first little question. We're going to save the other one to later on in this, and we'll tie it into Instagram as well. But yes, Tom's got another star prize as well. We'll call it the star prize. It's a very generous donation. I wish I could enter myself because I know what it is. But yeah, it's going back to the whole financial aspect of it, Tom. I think, you know, it's one of those things that you have to kind of suck up and get on with. Self-responsibility, as you did. You know, you try and budget and get through it as best you can. And as we've grown into the industry, I see it from the other side now as an employer. Because I used to think, well, why can't I just be given this gear? I need it to do the job, and why can't I have better pay because I'm already doing this? But when you're on the other side of that fence and you're paying somebody to be an apprentice, you know, that there's slowing down aspects on jobs while you're training them. There's the worry that, you know, they might not stick it. Not everybody's got the same attitude. So it is, it's a two-way street, isn't it? And getting that balance right is really quite difficult, to be honest.
Absolutely. One of the things I was always taught, sort of, from a guy when I was doing my apprenticeship, he always said, look, if you can afford to, put a little bit by. Not loads, but just a little bit, and it will add up, you know, at the end of the month, quarter, whatever, at the end of the year, and buy something out. What you've got to remember is these attributes that you buy from, you know, your side cutters or croppers or pliers or screwdrivers, hammer hacks or whatever, files, spanners, they're going to earn you the money, and that will enable you to then progress and get more up higher. And you can then look at then getting more qualifications. The more qualifications you get, the more you learn, the more you earn. You know, and that's kind of, it's not just about the money side, but it's also the fact that you've built up something. You look at a mechanic, right? When they start their apprenticeship, they start off with a few odds and sods, and then they end up with like this huge, great big chest, loads of drawers, loads of different, you know, spanners, files, gauges, socket sets, a variety of different jobs. They're not that well paid compared to in the electrical industry as an apprentice, but they still they have to. If they don't have it, they can't earn and they can't progress. And I'm not saying, you know, if you don't get a toolkit, you're going to be a nobody, because that's not the point. Trust me, I started off my first set of screwdrivers I had were some I think like they were like supermarket brand ones. I think I can't remember what ones, but they weren't very good. But they were my first set of screwdrivers. And they were great. You know, I could do stuff. It was fantastic. We've all been in that boat. Everyone has. Doesn't matter if you've been, you know, 30 plus years in the game. We've all started somewhere, and you get some firms. As time went on, when I left and moved on, the firm that I started with, they ended up buying their apprentices full toolkit, and they had to sign it out, and you know that was theirs until they finished it, and then when they finished it, they were giving it if they completed their apprenticeship. If they left or anything else, they had to hand back anything else. You know, so there is that kind of thing. You know, but look at it as an investment. You know, whatever you can afford. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, your Nipexes or your Wearers or your CKs or whatever the other top brands out there or anything else that we see from time to time. Just build up what you can afford, what you can put your money into, because at the end of the day, attitude's the best tool you can have, in my opinion. You know, for doing, you know, for learning. That's key to me. Attitude.
That's what everybody says who comes on this podcast, and apprentices should take note, because it is the key aspect to it all. In my opinion, I agree with you, Tom, totally. You know, attitude is everything. And like you said, there's the top end gear that we all see if you're on social media often enough, been waved around, and I certainly get drawn in and buy too much of it. But when you're an apprentice, there are some very, very capable and decent, you know, budget stuff out there. We've given away a few other sets from Draper, I think, the hand screwdrivers there, and I've used them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's great gear, it's VDE rated, and it'll serve you well, and it's like less than 20 quid. So, you know, you can get the deals out there to do the job. So don't be put off just because you think, well, I'm going to get laughed at on site because these aren't Nipex or Klein or whatever else, because that's not the case. You need the gear to get started.
I worked with this guy when I went off on my own, doing subcontracting when I qualified. As you do, you think you're going to go out there and explore the wide world, and I'd always advise people to do that, because you know, don't just stay with one thing. Look at, you know, build your time, pay it back to what you owe to your employer, because that they do invest you a lot of time. But once you're ready and you feel that you want to make the leap, go and see what the world's all about, electrical industry. Go and see, because everyone's got different opinions. And I remember when I very first went out, it was, I think Snickers were like the top brand workwear, and I remember turning up, and it looked like something out of Arco catalogue model, like Derek Zoolander, walking onto site, you know, prancing around, looking all. There's this bloke, I remember his name to this day, Ray, and he sat there and he was in these old pair of old tatty jeans. He had this padded donkey jacket on, this bucket with all different, like old tool screwdrivers and hammers, and this old 110 drill, and his fag hanging out, and his hard hat on, and he looked at me and he went, "What the blooming hell do you look like, you Wally?" and all this sort of stuff. And I kind of sat there thinking, I do look like the right guy from here. But you know, he's turned out some phenomenal. I mean, like to the point it was like artwork that can take. You always want annoying people who just look at something and go. And he'd sit there for about 5 minutes. You'd go, right, and then he'd get on and do it, and he'd show and spend that time with you and everything else like that. And then I kind of started to think it isn't about, you know, people don't care what you dress head to toe in. They're just more interested about your work that you can turn out and do and everything else. And it does resonate, because what they then do is you get a bit of at the time you get a bit of a name or a reputation on that particular job, and they're like, oh, Ernie and Bert are really good at doing armour dressing, let's get these guys in to do the, you know, X, Y and Z, or Steve and John are very good at doing, you know, containment, or Tom and Paul are very good at doing distribution board, you know, but they're not the ones who are walking around, like as I said, in all the, you know, they're just quiet guys at the back, just doing and everything else. And I've fallen about it myself. You know, you just, it's that acceptance thing. We want to be accepted as people. That's not number one. You know, we want to not say fit in, but we want to be like the, you know, keeping up with the Joneses. I think that's kind of the
There's definitely an element of that goes on, mate, certainly with the youngsters. And the person you described out on site, Jamie said this before, if you find someone like that on a job, cling on to them and suck every bit of knowledge out of them you can, because they've been there and seen it and done it, and if they've got the tips and tricks to get you out of trouble, they're the people to learn from, aren't they, at the end of the day?
Oh yeah, just be a sponge. I mean, I remember who it was. He said he goes, "Oh, I'm with the old man." I've got everything else, but that they've got the time. They have got the time for you, and I think that's a really good attribute. I mean, even now to this day, I mean, there's the guy who was talking about Ray. I still speak to him. I mean, he's like, I think he's like late 70s, early 80s now, but he's still grafting on sites. And I just can't get my head around. I mean, surely there must be a legal limit for age, but there's not, and stuff like that. But he's happy, he's earning, and he's having fun, and he's still teaching people who go and spend the time with him. I think that's phenomenal.
It is. There's some older guys who I work with, and a lot of them say this, that they've seen their friends retire and then die very quickly afterwards, so it's put them off ever retiring, and they're just keeping going, and fair play to them. They enjoy the work, they get paid for it, and they're happy doing it. So retirement isn't for everybody, is it? Some people just like the crack of work. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I remember my great grandfather. He was 96 and he was a boilermaker when what he did for a living, and he retired at 96. And the only
That's a good innings at work, is that?
Oh yeah, the only reason he was out of the house is because he didn't like watching the rugby. My family from up north originally, we came down in the early 80s and with the Navy sort of thing. My dad was in the Navy, and he in his broad Mancunian accent said, "I don't want to watch that daft rubbish that your grandmother makes me watch, so I'd rather be out of work." and it was true. It was it was just to get out and about and socialise with people, which was still just keeping that mind sharp, sort of thing.
Yeah. So as your career's kind of moved on, Tom, we have these discussions in wider industry about kind of the gold card and the IET and professional registration and all this kind of stuff. What are your views on that? Do you have like a value on the gold card? Are you with the IET? How do you think about all of this professional development CPD stuff?
I like it. I mean, it's always been that thing. I didn't really know, because as I say, where I came from, an engineering industry background, it wasn't really spoken about in there prior beforehand, because you started and you were so I was classed as an electrical fitter. So my job was as an electrical fitter originally started. And I remember I kind of didn't really hear much about the gold card until I kind of left that sort of bubble that I was in to come out. And I like it. I mean, I've got my JLB gold card. I'm just in the process of getting my black card at the moment for the managers. I have to have it. I have in the last year just started my professional registration after seeing lots of different people doing it. Certain people have just gone through doing their C-Eng and Eng Tech and fellows, and I think it's fantastic that people are spending, who want, they're spending the time gaining that and telling them about what they can do, and I think it's really good, and I think it should be sort of shouted about. I mean, one of the people that I speak to on here, Ricky. Is it Rick who's been on here? Ricky
Howell.
Yeah, I've got all the time in the world for that guy. I've not watched how he started off in his professional registration thing, and it's amazing. It's just just watching how he's gone from this to this, then goes to that for his job. It's a real pleasure to watch. It really is. I don't speak to him lots, but when I do speak to him, we speak we put a lot of information into quite a short time, and just seeing what he's achieved and others, and I'm not just saying him on every sort of from Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. I really like seeing when you see that I've just got this, and they show the card, or they show that they've gone up, or they show the bit of certification and paper, and I think it is something to be proud of, because why not? At the end of the day, why not?
I love those posts. I think they're fantastic, and Ricky's a legend. I chat with Rick a lot. I'm actually subcontracting him on occasion. Now he's doing his new job. So Ricky's an absolute ledge, and his journey. He's actually an assessor now for the IET, I think, for Eng Tech. So he's giving back in that way as well, which is incredible. I think the Gold Card, that's often the one the apprentices are aware of, because that's what's spoken about in college now, and it's held up as kind of, when you're finished, this is what you get. It's going to open up some doors for you. But the other side of it, the professional registration, and it's kind of an unknown in those places. I think we need to speak about it a bit more, make apprentices aware of it, that there is that route with the IET where you can get graded as Eng Tech, there's IENs, there's CENs, you can be fellows, there's all the free training and stuff in and around them as well. So there's some really, really good stuff you can do there to build your career and set yourself apart as you move out of your apprenticeship. There's a lot of people who kind of year threes and looking at the next step, should I do 2391 and all the city and guilds qualifications you can do, and often I feel like the IET stuff's overlooked. So the point of electrician Eng Tech is something you all need to be going and checking out, and get yourself through that process, because it's very rewarding. I've done it. I got a lot out of that, personally speaking.
I absolutely mirror everything you said, Mark. I think my from what I've done recently this year, so I've only just started my professional registration. So I'm currently a TMIET, which is your technician member of the Institute of Engineering Technology. At the moment, I'm just doing my application for my Eng Tech.
Awesome.
My apologies, got it around the wrong way. And I think it's really good. Lots of people are doing it, maybe I've seen for the wrong reasons, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's nice to look to what you've achieved, and what you can offer back. For me, I remember when I was qualifying, doing my AM2, and I was with these other guys who were in another firm, and they were like, "Oh, we're not doing our AM2. Our bosses told us it's pointless. We're just going to be doing this." And I was like, I remember looking at them going, "Why? It's paid for. Just go do it." And they were like, "No, we're not going to do it." Anyway, let's fast forward 15 years later, I see them at the wholesalers, and a lot of them are struggling for work and to get work.
Yeah, it's a thing, isn't it? If you want to set yourself apart, you've got to put that effort in and kind of put yourself forward in the best way you can to clients, even if it's on a subcontract basis. These things make you stand out.
Yeah, definitely, and never stop. I mean, don't just stop with doing your electrical side. There are other implements you can do. You can move on to doing your triple STS, your
such a good point.
SMTS, site manager safety. Not really prepared for that, but I've recently just done my triple STS and first aid at work, and I know you're doing something very similar with that as well. The mental health first aider, all these remember these are just the bolt-ons to the other bits and pieces, and that's all the bits and pieces, because if you can show that you can do these bits and pieces, then you'll maybe looking at going into a supervisor role, or then going on to a site manager or a contracts manager or a project manager. Look at the way up.
Exactly, and those low wages we've accepted at the beginning of our training are totally opposite as you build into your career if you've put those hard yards in. I think we're at a time now where the electrical industry is about to have a pretty big boom in salary prospects. I know we see these posts on social media of job roles offered at silly rates, and they're still out there. But I think the general trend, we're going to see a big shift towards good employment opportunities and wages for electricians. I think the plumbers have had that boat for the last 15 years, and with the gas getting kind of taken out of the equation, they're maybe going to see a bit of what we've had in that period. So standing out and putting yourself at the front of that queue where you can have a good job role, so you need to enjoy it, but we all want to make money, let's not pretend otherwise, then you need to put that work in and set yourself apart, and doing stuff like professional registration, getting your gold card, making sure you've done AM2, the 2391, which is your testing inspection, the 2396 for design, I think that's a level 4 qualification. All these things will help you do that, and then when you're applying for these job roles, the salary on the end of it is going to be a lot higher than the £4 you were making right at the start of your apprenticeship.
Yeah, everyone's got to start somewhere. Look at a manager at a supermarket. They didn't just start on being as a manager. Some of them, had to work their way up through the ranks. It's just a structural system that we've all sometimes forget in a beer to, but unfortunately now a lot of people just want to come in and be on the mega bucks, but I think that's because they're not willing to do the work. If you do the work, then you'll be rewarded for it, and that's the key thing. You know, I remember a guy when I was doing the agency work, he was always looking for the quick buck route to make loads of money. Didn't really want to work hard, or you know, just looking at how can you make loads and loads of money all the time. And it kind of was quite sad to see that, but at the same time it kind of made me realise that I don't want to be anything like that guy. Leave it out. I'm going to look at a different avenue and everything else. But I think the more work that you put into it, everything pays off. You know, I remember when I did my ATEX work, you know, I was serious money. I mean, really serious money. But it's a very specialised part of the industry, and you know, the wages are a lot higher than what general electrical contracting can be. However, maintenance and all the other bits and pieces where that goes into specialisation as well, you know, you can command specialist money. This is the thing about putting the time into it. Don't just think short term, look at long term gains. You know, if you put the time in it like anything, you know, you can get out. I mean, I remember when I first passed my driving test, I always wanted a VW transporter. I was like, that's all I want. All I want in the world, car van wise, is a thing. My first company van was a VW transporter. My second company van was a VW transporter. So, you know, set yourself goals, realistic goals. You can get anywhere if you channel it in. You can get it there. A lot of people are just now looking for quick, short-term goals. Look at the bigger picture. I would like to be a massive company. That was what my big plan is. But no one just walks into a business and say, right, page 1, how to be successful. Page 2, how to have lots of money. Page 3, how to have lots of staff. Page 4, sell up, sell for $1 million. Yeah, that's not what happens. You learn about all the bits and pieces that go with, you know, recovering money because someone's not paid you. You might learn from, you know, a supplier letting you down. Therefore, the contractors, you lose that contract. So you've got to then, you know, these are all life lessons that we learn, and I think sometimes that kind of gets thrown out of context a little bit because people are just chasing the pound note all the time. And if you learn all these little key and fundamental bits and pieces, they make you into a better rounded engineer, because you've got to remember, if you're not willing to do it, don't ask other people to do it. You know, that's always another thing you've got to look into.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big advocate of that. You know, I wouldn't ask any of my employees to do anything I don't get stuck in doing myself. I think that's a great point. And equally, like you say, with, you know, you see these companies, I won't name them, but there's some really big companies out there who've grown very quickly and they're doing some incredible and very, very successful things. But for every one of those, there's 1,000 maybe of normal small contracting businesses like mine and Tom's and others who are just trying to work their way slowly towards that. There isn't a magic bullet for it, and not everybody is that lucky. There is an element of luck to things like that happen for people. I'm absolutely positive of that. So don't focus on too much on those who are having instant and massive success, because the reality for most people is quite different to that. You can still achieve that success and do quite well for yourself, but maybe not be driving around in a Lambos and having a massive £1 million house in the countryside somewhere right in the first 10 years of your career.
Well, I'm flying off to Barbados tomorrow, so but yeah, no, it's very you've got to have realistic goals. You know, I think now with the personification of how we view success, especially with social media, people assume that what you see is what realistically like, but you got to remember that's all rose smoke and mirrors, or all fur coat, no knickers, as the other say. Look at the bits and pieces that people have to sacrifice. You know, like your time spent with family, holidays, friends, long hours. You know, these are all things that you have to implement, not just in running a business, but you know, in career aspect, if you're a 9 to 5 guy and everything else that just wants to go in, clock in, get his money, go home, and that's it, that's fine. That's how you're wired. But if you want to kind of go and work your way up, there are some bits and pieces that you're going to have to do. Long hours, very long hours. I remember the first year of in business, I remember I was doing like 18-hour days, 7 days a week. You know, and like similar for you to yourself. And I remember sitting there being, I'm a busy fool. What am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. It's just one of those things. You always wear too many hats. And that's the thing. You've got to remember that those hats have to be passed on to other people at some point. And that's the beauty with an apprentice as well, because once you've got that hat that you can take off and go, right, he's going to be now training the next apprentice, so I can take that hat off and pass that on to him. And that's a beautiful thing to see when you see that you can then start coming off the tools, not as much, but you know, kind of, you know, let them then mould the next generation, and then the next one, and then the next one, and next one, and it all kind of, then those hats all start going off, because that next apprentice that you've just put through and everything else, he or she might want to go into doing the account side of like the administration of the business. You know, so you pass them that. You might have a financial director. You might have a technical director. You know, that's a brilliant thing when you get to see all of those key little hats being passed to different members of the team that you've trained up. So, you know, don't just settle at being the person on the tools. That's part of it. Look at all the other bits that go with running a business and being part of a business.
Yeah, I mean, the world's your oyster with that one. And none of us, I don't think, set out to be business people who end up running our own contracting companies. And Aidan, who was on the last podcast, that's out at the minute this week, he seems to have identified very early on in his creation of his business that he needs to pass those hats out through outsourcing. So he's got an accountant, he's got somebody looking after his contracts. I made all those mistakes myself when I started through probably a lack of trusting other people, and I tried to do it all myself, and I made some horrendous mistakes because of that. So, you know, identifying that and sharing stories like mine, Tom, with you guys, isn't us kind of bleating on about stuff for the sake of it. It's hoping that helps you if you go down these roads as well, where you can miss out a lot of the mistakes we might have made and have a better outcome for yourself. So that's why we're sat here doing this at the minute.
Completely agree, 100%. I think one thing I would like to say though, just to people who are, you know, kind of looking into the, you know, financial side of the apprenticeship as well, is that, you know, there are organisations out there like the Apprentices Trust and other bits and pieces that are there to help out as well. There are other key bits and pieces. I will send them through to Mark once I've found out about myself that, you know, even if you're you know, if you're a serving member or your, you know, family members, there are other charity organisations of different, you know, if you're in the ex-armed forces, if you're, you know, mum and dad are incapacitated because of a disability, there are charities that are out there that can help with the financial side of, you know, basic, you know, tools if you need that bits and pieces. You know, and here's one for if electricians are listening. They're like, well, no, you do it. In that shopping basket that you've got on your phone on Amazon, just stick a set of screwdrivers and a set of cutters in, and when you're paying that ridiculous money for those Gucci work trousers, add that on, mount it up, send the stuff through to Mark at Apprentice 1-to-1, and that helps out, because we're not being funny, we all earn good money as electricians, so it's just nice to be nice and pass it on to those who are less fortunate than ourselves.
Yeah, and that's a good point as well about the charities. There's the Electrical Industries Charity, and if you're with a GIB employer, the GIB do a scheme where they will help apprentices purchase tools and pay for additional training. So if you're lucky enough to have an employer that is a GIB member, this isn't the ECS card, it's an actual membership of the GIB that your employer would be part of. You know, there are those things, and that's funded by the GIB themselves. There's a podcast we did about that on the Spark Show where we delved into the details of it. I can't remember them right now, but I'll tag it in the show notes. So if you want to go off and listen to that, or check the GIB website and the electrical industry charities as well. There are organisations out there, as Tom has very rightly and brilliantly said, that can help you. You know, you're not isolated and on your own with these things. If you are really in financial hardship, the industry's there to help look after you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so with that,
Sorry, my apologies. Sorry.
No, carry on, Tom. Please carry on.
It just even JTL, if you start with them as an apprentice, they offer you a toolkit. If you're not as lucky to go through for that, just contact contact a few local suppliers. I know I've done this in the past. They do get a lot of old stock that just sits in the back of the wholesalers. Just ask them, how much do you want for that? Because they want rid of it, because otherwise it's just dead stock. And to them, it's better to have a little than nothing at all. And it's a good thing. I've done it in the past. I went in there when I first went out on my own, and they needed a conduit bender. I went in there and I'd seen this thing in the back of my local Edmonton's for ages, and I kept saying to them, how much do you want for that? And they were like, oh no, it's like 800 quid or whatever it was. I think I got to the point where I think it was more the fact that I just annoyed them to the inch of they were getting sick of me asking. And he went, you know what? He said, you can have it for 200 quid, you stop asking us every time you come in here to get gear. So, it did pay off. And it hurt me my mum's back.
Hound the wholesalers, I like it. That's a good tip. Get in there and tell them what you want, and eventually they'll give it to you. Definitely a good tip there. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to speak about, Tom, while you are here? Because we're kind of ticking up towards the hour mark, and I want to get the last little thing you've got that you've very kindly donated to Apprentice 1-to-1 on a little giveaway at the end. But is there anything you want to cover before we get to that point?
No, just keep trucking on, guys and girls. Don't think you can't stop with as I say, there's lots of things out there to help you out. Reach out to electricians. I'll just tell you to go away. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good point as well. Get yourself involved, get in touch with electricians in the local area if you're looking for work. Do the basics, and there'll be someone out there who will help you 100%. Now, Tom has very, very, very kindly put forward a Hilti Laser level as a giveaway for Apprentice 1-to-1. I think that's right, isn't it, Tom?
Yep, it's a Hilti Laser level. I was kindly donated it by Hilti a year or two ago when I purchased a few items. To be brutally honest with you, it's just sat in a box doing nothing for the past sort of couple of months, and I've just kind of been sat there like, I don't know what to do about it. I thought, do you know what? I'll speak to Mark, see if he can give it away. So that's the offer.
Fantastic. And this is for apprentices only, same as all the other gear, so anyone who's sat there like me would like to have that themselves, tough luck, you're not going to be able to enter. So this is for just apprentices, and same as I said before, there's a campaign on social media through September. It's still September now. It's called Safe for September. It's to do with safe isolation and such things as that. And I would like you to create a post somewhere on social media describing what you should do before you work on any electrical system. So as an apprentice, what are the things you should be doing before you work on an electrical system that you've been asked to, I don't know, install a socket on or take a light fitting down, whatever it might be. What's the first thing you should do? Create a little post, tag me and Tom in it, use the hashtag Safe for September, and we'll have a look at those as well and draw a winner in a couple of weeks or so. Me and Tom will have a look through and maybe do a random number generator or something like along those lines. Hopefully we get enough entries, because this is right at the end of the podcast, and I know from the viewing figures it goes down like that as we get past the half an hour mark. So for those of you who stuck there to the end, you've got the best chance already. Don't forget to tag me and Tom. I'll put all of his social media stuff in the description of this video as well. Use whatever platform you want. We're on them all, so LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. If you want, make a TikTok. I don't know if Tom's on there, but I am, and we'll put you into the entry as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm always willing to be sort of educated on social media.
Well, there's a lot of the cool creators are on TikTok, Tom. Far too cool for me. I'm not really on there creating much content, but there's loads of stuff to do with little training tricks. So there's JB Ox, I think he's called. He's got a TikTok tutor, so he teaches and he puts little clips up of how to work out your adiabatic equations and getting your ZS figures and such like. Loads of cool little 20-second clips that are really helpful for learners. So there's some really nice content over on there. It's not just the silly stuff that you see. So there is some people making good content over on that platform. But yeah, getting off topic a little bit there. Get your post out, tag us in it, make sure you use the Save for September hashtag. You could win yourself a Hilti Laser level. I'm going to drop posts on social media about all of this with little clips of this podcast, so we try and make people aware of what's going on. But the only way you'll find out how to enter is if you watch the whole thing right up to the end, as we are now. I'm going to be quite strict on that. There's going to be no easy wins for anybody. And yeah, get involved with all of that. I want to thank you, Tom, anyway, for coming on, and your very, very kind donations. What you've offered up there is nothing short of incredible. It's people like you who make Apprentice 1-to-1 a real privilege for me. You know, I've seen this close up, I say this a lot. It's an absolute honour to see people coming forward and doing things like this, just to help others, people you don't know at the end of the day. So huge credit to you. I'm very grateful. I know the apprentices will be too. Anytime you want to come back on to have a chat, you're more than welcome. You know, it's just been a lovely, lovely chat. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and I've really enjoyed myself, and yeah, more than happy to pop back and chew the fat about electrical. Always happy to talk about it.
I think we're all happy to do that, and as I said, I'll pop in the show notes. There'll be a link to the E5 episode 54 where the guys have a good chat with Tom. I think they're from around 2020, and with Gary as well on Hit the Lights. Episode 8, for those of you who want to go and have a bit of a more detailed listen of Tom's history and background. I think he went into more detail on those ones. We didn't want to kind of repeat the content again here, so go and check that out, give them a watch, and get in touch with Tom. I'm sure he's open for any questions on his social media channels. They'll all be in the show notes. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much for watching. As always, comments are welcome. We'll get involved and feedback our opinions and advice. We'll see you later.